Today is called checking priors. That's my word traction podcast for the day. And checking priors means I was. We all get caught up in the energy, the negative energy, and the news feeds that are all focused on Iran quite logically. And it kind of takes the oxygen out of the room. If you're a cynic, and if you've joined me for any of these podcasts, you might properly qualify me as somewhat cynical. But if the distraction is part of the mission, as I adjust my camera carefully, then your boy DJT is achieving part of his goal. Because distraction from Venezuela to Iran, and then whatever happens in Cuba. There was a note from a Cuban regime figure yesterday saying that ongoing conversations with the Trump administration. So maybe we can work something out where nobody dies, which certainly would be preferable to where we are today. I haven't been to Cuba for quite a little while, but I look forward to returning on some day when we're welcome to return. And things are such that the Cuban people are safe and have a way to provide food and shelter for their families without the obligations that they will owe to the Trump family for being allowed to invade their fair country, which is a nice trade-off, of course, and in Venezuela as well. We are not going to know all the answers to the questions on Venezuela for quite some time. The people, as I've mentioned before, I had the honor of living there and being hosted there beautifully, and loved and cared for in every possible way. Love the country, love the people. I'm happy for those indigenous, for the actual Venezuelans that are hopeful that the decapitation operation with Nicolas Maduro will make things better at some point in the future for the Venezuelan people, not for Dulce Rodriguez and the regime, which is in place except for two people, with all of the corruption and the military and everything else that goes with that. So the common people, the pueblo, if you will, they're not benefiting from the tremendous wealth that is part of the country, the natural resources. It goes beyond oil. There's gold, there are emeralds, there are unimaginable resources that have not been fully exploited for corrupt reasons and for other reasons. The technology today in 2026 to identify where to mine for particular minerals, our technology today is so far superior, and just in geology and the other earth sciences that allow us to extract oil, but to identify where minerals, rare earth or otherwise, are located. We can extract them in a way that hopefully is less damaging to the earth and less costly, right? Blood diamonds and conflict gold aside, that we can do that more efficiently and hope that all of the Venezuelan people are allowed to benefit from that that tremendous resource that belongs to them, not to Nicolas Maduro, and not to the regime, and not to the cartels, indigenous and otherwise. But today, checking priors, this Breonna Taylor. It was the 6-year anniversary yesterday of her killing in Louisville, and as you remember, I posted about this yesterday. But the police no-knock warrants crashed into her house. Her male partner, I don't believe their husband, but BF fired because he reasonably thought that they were perhaps about to be the victim of a crime, and the police returned fire and killing Breonna Taylor. And that, of course, caused quite correctly some pretty hard discussions about policing and about racial justice and a lot of other things. The track record for the Louisville is great for horses, unless you're a horse. It's not that's not a career that you'd want to look in. It's hard living if you're there working for CDI, Churchill Downs. Not an easy life, and the racial component to the city's policing has been bad, predating the tragedy with the beautiful Breonna Taylor. So they had problems for a long time, and I think there was a consent decree preceding that. So, but it made me think about in Trump 2.0, just by virtue of my schedule and the calendar and what happens in all of our lives, and that which inspires us. Then I realized that I'd talked about, on more than one occasion, I talked about Fred Hampton, because we passed the anniversary of his birthday recently, and he, of course, was the inspirational young leader in the Black Panther Party, who was gunned down by just about every law enforcement agency aligned in an effort to snuff out his young life, including J. Edgar Hoover. It was in 1969, 69 in Chicago, and he was a promise, an endlessly promising, inspirational civil rights leader, and he was taken much too young and much too soon. And by virtue of Dr. King being Dr. King, I've done an episode, at least one, on some aspects of his life. And on Jesse Jackson, who we recently lost, was another episode, and that, of course, ties back Reverend Jackson, ties back to the relationship with Dr. King, and Reverend Jackson also ties in a rainbow coalition, in adjacent rainbow coalition sense, ties into Fred Hampton. But there's, it's Medgar Evers, and not everyone that has been to, I was about to say that is covered in the history books as frequently, but of course that's something we're going to get to, part of the whitewashing campaign that's going on right now in Trump 2.0 and in many southern states, and doubly so under Ron DeSantis in Florida. But so these leaders, going back to Medgar Evers and those even some folks with unhealthy complexions like mine, that knew that the civil rights fight was a fight that belongs to all of us and is not only to be embraced by incredibly beautiful and talented men like Dr. King, but it's something that we all need to participate in. And so that was Brianna. And then, of course, most recently, we almost forget because of the deluge, the fire hose, the purposeful fire hose of information and news that's part of the Project 2025 playbook, is to keep people distracted. And that's going, the flow rate on the fire hose is accelerated because of course, because of Jeffrey Epstein. So Trump is hyper motivated to keep the distraction flow going, and the war, and going into elections, and all of the other things that we're dealing with. I guess Minneapolis, right? So that was our Renee Good, that was Alex Preddy, who are not great African American civil rights leaders, but they are civil rights icons for another purpose, because they gave their lives standing up for our human rights and civil rights. And George Floyd Jr., who was the catalyst for Black Lives Matter. He would have been proud of that. He would have, of course, probably chosen not to give his life to police brutality in order to be a leader, but he is nonetheless, and he's an inspiration to all of us. And we're reminded of that inspiration because the Trump administration so forcefully and discourteously and with great racism and violence dragged us back into it by their ICE adventures in Minneapolis, beginning in LA and traveling through Chicago and branching off to Charlotte and other places. And it will continue, because that will be an excuse that's used to further interfere with the elections. We know, we've all read a lot about and have talked about on this podcast, the SAVE Act, and which is I was listening to someone earlier today, and I can't give you direct attribution because I can't recall. I tend to digest a lot of different opinion pieces in a day because I value them all, and of course, there's not enough time for everything. But if it was, no, I won't be able to find that. But we can connect the efforts in the SAVE Act as sort of, it isn't just racially inspired attacks on the voting public. This also, because of one of the features of the bill, it disenfranchises women disproportionately. We talked about it in our episode that that by one little game they have in the bill is women, largely women, that got married and changed their name to their husband's name at marriage and didn't, that means that all of a sudden your birth certificate is your birth name. It isn't your married name any longer. So can that provide a level of ambiguity in certain states, or nationally, as the Republican Party would have it, to require a birth certificate? Now, these are things that will be litigated. They will be in the courts. So much will be, we will be overwhelmed. But, it passed in the House. The president like he tends to do. He pulls an executive order out of his ass and wants that to be the law because he's the king. Of course, that's not how it works. But as far as exciting his base, it's like elections have consequences. It should be whatever DJT wants. But no, it's not how it works. But part of the strategy for these people, you could, if you read the version that he was supporting, is of course the added little uh, noxious little tidbits that he hung on to the end of the executive order were about transgender kids. What do transgender children have to do below voting age have to do with national elections or statewide elections? Little practically, because if they're underage, they're not voting. Just like the people that aren't coming over the border to cast votes from Mexico and Texas. But it was used effectively as a weapon against Kamala Harris and against the Democratic Party in the last general, right? That you're for they and we're for us, and all of the different versions of that, and that you care more about what are you're going to make all of our daughters into sons, or you're going to allow your sons to compete against our daughters in the swimming pool and make them change in the same room, right? So it was a fiction, a lie, a fiction that was weaponized effectively like Jeffrey Dahmer, my favorite cartoon character. He was an effective proponent of a protein-rich diet, anti-vegetarian, anti-vegan, but probably not a guy you wanted to spend a lot of time with. And the Republican Party platform allowing re-victimizing children with gender dysphoria or other legitimate problems, physical, mental, social, behavioral, and otherwise, whatever they are, not qualified. Using that, re-victimizing them, it's like bringing women on a woman who was a victim of a violent assault and using her as a totem on the stage. It's despicable, but it was done, and it in fact got the attention of plenty of MAGA voters that perhaps didn't care to read past word one if they were able to on the issue and just automatically assume that it's Trump. We love him. He must be telling us the truth. He's never lied to us before. So we have to assume that the Democratic Party is converting girls into boys and aliens and all of that stuff. Now, of course, there will what was the MAGA faithful, the people that were influenced and remain under the influence of the red pills, will they stay with Trump or the Republican Party more generally after the Epstein files when they found out that the QAnon joke was on them? They're not laughing, maybe, because we'll have to assume, by the grace of God or whoever your higher power is, that when these people say that they are believers in God, God, Jehovah, Abraham, or any of the above, and they believe that child sex trafficking might be a sin. And whatever your belief about ultimately about Donald Trump's culpability in his relationship with Epstein, it's clear. I mean, it's been clear that there's enough there that he has no. There's no truth. There is no honor in anything the man says. He lies about dead Iranian schoolgirls and does it seemingly with glee because he feels like if he's doing the thing where if he repeats it, 3 times fast, like Beetlejuice, that if he says a lie enough that it becomes the truth, that's what he really believes, then he thinks he's winning. When of course what he's doing is he is delegitimizing the presidency himself, but that's the ship has sailed on that. The executive branch, and because of the tremendous weight, he's also destroying the the Article 1, the Congress, and doing his, and then layer on all the corruption, which is beyond dispute. Horrible. Right? So let's leave that dumpster, that the walking dumpster fire that is your president. We'll leave him aside, and let's refocus on the checking priors part, which is in fact, after all, the title of this podcast. What I meant by that, and it's there aren't any answers or layers or tricks or questions to that. What that said to me is with the 6-year anniversary of Breonna Taylor's killing, and George Floyd, and Dr. King, and of course Jesse Jackson died. Wasn't murdered in the street. He died at a little young by current standards, and he was suffering from Parkinson's, as my dear father was, late onset and too hasty a departure. Reverend Jackson was dealing with it for a longer period of time, and fought bravely, and apparently had a full and meaningful life right up to the end. So God bless. But my priors, what that means is, I am not a renowned black civil rights leader. Hope you're sitting down on that. But it's a subject that I care deeply and sincerely about. And what struck me was, for Ms. Taylor, you look at it and you're like, oh, it's the anniversary of X, of something. You question yourself and you say, when was the last time that I, had a good thought for her? Just, I'm not being hard on myself. I'm not criticizing any human being. But the priors means, are you staying true to your words, to your positions, to what you profess to stand for? So, and what that made me think about with the good Dr. King and many others is, how can I, in a world, we were back to Ronnie DeSantis and whitewashing and the efforts to scrub history books of any references to that uncomfortable reality of slavery and other things that make Americans sad. This whole Republican Party. We don't like to be reminded of those because we're sad when people accuse us of being racist, right? Look at the freaking Supreme Court. I mean, Clarence Thomas himself, the embarrassment that he is. I'm not qualified to call him a Tom. That's not my position. But he has done just about everything he can, along with Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham's partner in crime, along with Nancy Mace down the street, that did everything they can to oppose affirmative action. I am a strong advocate for affirmative action, not because when Chief Justice John Roberts says or implies that this ain't going to go on forever. This can't go on forever. This is going to time out. Look around where we are today. If the concept of affirmative action, of balancing things and fairness, equity, inclusion, if you're going to take a step back from that, that's fine. But based on our current behavior, I'm going to be well in the ground, and all evidence of my having been here will be gone by the time the United States is ready to start considering that. Because we're, technical term here, but we've been fucking it up for a really long time, since Reconstruction and the embarrassment of Jim Crow laws, and some successes, some progress in the 60s with civil rights legislation. But now we're kneecapping Voting Rights Act, and we have a large swath of our white brothers and sisters in the United States, MAGA aligned, behaving like racist lunatics. So we're not quite ready to turn the page. And if there is that same faction wants to erase what's written on the page, so future generations won't be able to learn the facts and the truth, then it will be it'll be longer. It'll be another 100 years. Learn the hard truths now and keep learning them again and talking about them, because the alternative is you can't say Orwellian, because we're already past much of George Orwell, although I maybe use his quotes and admonitions in my evening closing arguments frequently, because it's just so brilliant. But we're in it, we're not past it, and just like we're not in a post-racial anything, right? So what I'm going to do for myself, and you'll see in my feed, much as I do at the end of every evening, I'm usually talking about an important Supreme Court case, or an important passing, or something of that flavor. I do every 7 days a week, if not more. But what I'm going to do as I'm checking my priors, I'm going to be relearning many brave civil rights leaders, past and present, but mostly past, because there are a lot of them, because I've been around for a while, and doing little short tributes, kind of reintroductions as I reintroduce them to myself. I'll probably do just little one page or less hits to try to give some grace to important people. Share that with other people that may have missed a name or two along the way in their their historical studies. And for, there are plenty of people that weren't born here and weren't, we're as a country, United States, we're pretty bad about teaching history, and we're getting worse for the reasons I just mentioned. We're miserable at teaching about what goes on in other countries because we're so, we're navel gazing, introspective, spoiled pricks and prickettes, because that's the American way. So I will also look for people that I have done a podcast on before, like Archbishop Desmond Tutu, an inspirational leader and a civil rights leading light by virtue of his beauty, power, and grace and elegance. Not a homegrown U.S. Man, but important in the world. So I'll have a couple of those mixed in there. But I'm looking back at the U.S. primarily on the civil rights leaders that passed away between in the wake of Dr. King's assassination. We can we can give we can give grace to men like RFK, the real one, not the lunatic that we're dealing with right now, but his dad, who was a civil rights champion in his own right. And so we'll checking my priors. I'm going to allow people to check my work because I'll share some notes and appreciate it. And of course, because this platform is a two-way street, then I invite you, welcome you to send me a note within the app mentioning a civil rights champion that you would like to give grace to, and I'd appreciate that, and I'll respond, and it can be an exchange of ideas, and I will do them as one-offs, and maybe after a week or better, after I've had a time to read and digest a little bit, maybe I'll just do a longer written piece or another episode like this and talk about what I relearned that either surprised me or inspired me or in this administration scared me a little bit. Not scare, but it unsettled me because we learn stories every day. Looking at the brave leaders in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, to know that a level of the most competent leaders in our armed services are not there to help our troops lead and stay safe. They lost their jobs because they were black or brown or female. No other reason. Not performance based, race based. And they were fired by Pete Hegseth for being black, for being brown, for having the superior chromosome makeup of XX. That was their sin. They were kicked out of the armed services or forced to retire. And now, when we need expertise, which expertise is what you're going to be hearing from me tomorrow, I imagine at this point, because what will add to the killed in action, wounded in action, the casualties of war is our armed services and executive leadership's refusal to consult the best and the brightest before invading Iran And while operations go on, the people that are the best qualified to give good advice to our senior leaders are sidelined. That's beyond dispute. All of the Iran experts that are available that are sitting in the government's employ now or offer their services and are available at Harvard and at other places. Harvard, which is a wonderful university where Jared's Jared's father, much like Donald's dad, opened the door for him at UPenn. Jared's father let him skate into Harvard. So we're grateful to those great men. Particularly the senior Kushner, who, as I had that message 48 hours ago with former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie talking about Jared's father, and I'll just repeat that because it's the weekend. We need something a little bit delightful. You will see my notes on the great civil rights leaders. That will be my pleasure. It will be good for me. It will be edifying. I will be better for the study, the investigation, learning, relearning, because we need to do that now because of the pace of the distraction, the fire hose, and all of that. If you missed it, the former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, who was appointed as the campaign manager for Trump in the last round, and a prominent Republican leader. New Jersey, an important state, a successful governor for a long period of time, and as I noted I noted in my note, as I stipulated in my note, does Chris Christie have a track record of rhetorical embellishment, making things a little bit more exciting than they actually were? Sure, me too. And if you're any fun, maybe you do yourself. It's part of, when you're writing fiction and absurdist fiction, all you need to do is to own up to it and let people know. I have the proclivity, and I'll let you know the difference when I'm doing something for absurdist fiction for a particular effect. I'll let you know in advance. That's fair. So Chris Christie recounted that he was the one that put Jared Kushner's father in prison, in federal custody. I think he did 2 or 3 years for a long, long list of financial crimes. I think it was 12, 13, 14, 15 counts, to which Jared's father pled guilty to all. In and amongst all of his adventures, Jared's father, who, as Governor Christie mentioned, in 2004, when he had him convicted by a court of law, was the second richest man in New Jersey, which is saying something. There's a lot of tremendously wealthy people in Jersey that work in Philly and that work in Manhattan and other places. And Mr. Kushner was one of those. But to show what an evil bastard he was, what he did was he hired a prostitute, a female prostitute, to coerce and have sex with his brother-in-law, and Mr. Kushner, the senior, and this is all a matter of court record, so I'm not embellishing this. They tape recorded it, and on the date of their mutual child's engagement party, Mr. Kushner shared the tape because he didn't particularly like his sister's husband, and so he wanted her to see her husband having sex with another woman. So that's the kind of people that we're dealing with the Trump-Kushner family clan. They're really human delights, one and all. And check the tape. I mean, it's, not that particular one because it's probably pretty disgusting. But it happened. It was, it's almost a quarter century ago. But it happened. It's there. Pleasure, as always. I wish you guys a beautiful day and night. And imagine I'll be with you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Sunday in this part of the globe, or everywhere at some point. Imagine I'll be on at some point. I'm going to do some reading consistent with what we talked about just this afternoon, and also working on that new Sunday series, which may turn out to be a Saturday series, as I'm just looking at schedules and important events that go on in the week, including weekend racing at Shotton and Happy Valley. All of those things. So whether that turns out to be a Saturday or a Sunday series, you will find out. It will be April the 1st Saturday or Sunday in April or sooner. And again, that will be a once a week show about business, staffing, talent acquisition, the effect of AI on hiring and business itself. And all of those things we're going to be wrestling with for only the next 50 years or until I'm in a box. So that will be fun. I'm looking forward to it and getting some guests in talent acquisition and financial services. Get a double dip that way, where people that are dealing with the profound effects of AI in the business operations themselves, but also in the process of hiring and training staff, and how much LLMs and AI are otherwise participating in the daily business function. So thank you again, and restack, retweet, subscribe, all of that, download, upload, and phone a friend. And thank you for your time. Have a great day.